The Ride Home Rants podcast is brought to you by Reaper Apparel Company. Reaper Apparel offers a casual line of superb fit, finish, and comfort. We design for those who refuse to die slowly and choose to live untamed. For those who aren't afraid to face the dark, for the ones that thrive in it, and for those who can appreciate life through a grim lens. That's Reaper Apparel Company. Go to the link in the description of this episode, use the promo code Mike Bono, and get 10% off. Also, the Ride Home Rants podcast is brought to you by my own personal merch store, the Stupid Should Hurt merch store. I have hats, I have t-shirts, hoodies, coffee mugs, water bottles, notebooks, you name it, I've got it. The description and the link for that will be in the description of this episode. Also, right now, if you use the promo code WELCOME, I will give you 5% off of your first purchase. That's the Stupid Should Hurt merch store. Also, the Ride Home Rants podcast is brought to you by Tactical Brotherhood, all American-made apparel, which helps support the Second Amendment. You can also find all this in the description of this episode with the link, Tactical Brotherhood. Part of every proceed does go to helping veterans, as it is a very good cause. All American-made products made right here in Minnesota. Go and check them out. Use the promo code PATRIOT15 to get 15% off your purchase. Now, let's start the show. Welcome, everybody, to another episode of the Ride Home Rants podcast. This is, as always, your host, Mike Bono. I have a fantastic guest for us today. He is the Director of Team Operations for the XFL San Antonio Brahmas. They are, I just said it wrong. He just told me how to say it. We'll correct that when we get on. He's coached all over. Jose Jefferson joins the show. Jose, thanks for joining, man.
Thanks for having me. It's going to be fun. I'm excited.
And it's the Brahmas. I don't know why it came out, bro.
That's all right. We're the Brohams.
You're the Brohams. I like it. That's a little bit better.
We're the drop top Brohams.
Oh, I need more coffee this morning for this. So
good night, folks.
Yeah. So apologize about that, but yeah, you are the Director of Team Operations for the the XFL and everything. We're going to get into that, but first and foremost, where did you grow up? What schools and all that, and take us a little bit about your background.
I'm originally from Omaha, Nebraska. Born and raised. I'm a long-suffering Cornhusker fan, as everybody else is, but I went to an all-boys high school. Was a three-sport athlete there. I thought I was going to be a basketball player, more so than anything else. It was an all-boys school, so we had 500 kids in my class alone, so we had no problems with football. So I really didn't play much football in high school, but I was a track guy, and I was a 7-time gold medal champion for the state of Nebraska, and I was actually a jumper that ran fast. That's what they called me. And went to the University of South Dakota on a track scholarship, and I was an All-American jumper sprinter there, school record holder. I actually qualified in the Olympics to the triple jump years ago, and it wasn't glamorous. I just had a certain rank, and that puts you into qualifying, but they take the top 3. I was ranked like 20th in the country, so I mean, it really wasn't that glamorous, but I did qualify, though. I did reach the qualifying. But then I played football very part-time there because we weren't good, but I was fast and had a 44-inch vertical and was known mostly as a jumper. So they used me very sparingly. And like I said, it was not a notable career to do anything. But then after school, just as we all do, you try to fit in one lane or another in this world. And so I went to Phoenix, and my roommate at the time was on a practice squad with the Phoenix Suns. So I was like, I'm going to hang out. And I was playing pickup basketball with like Kevin Johnson, Charles Barkley, Dan Majerle. Because, he was involved, and they were just, they were pickup games, and I was just tagging along. And like I said, I thought I was going to be a basketball player. And, I wasn't on the level of those guys at all. Kevin Johnson just liked me because I was fast enough to where I didn't have to put hands on him to play defense on him. So, I mean, it was a good workout for him. But they said, you're pretty, they said you played football, you should try for the Arizona Rattlers. And I was like, Arizona Rattlers? And it was an arena football. And Danny White was the head coach. And so I worked out for a little bit for it, not much. And next thing you know, this tryout comes, there's like 400 people there, and I paid like $250, $300 to do it. And I ran a 4:28 and a 40. And Danny White didn't ask me my name, didn't ask me where I came from. He just said, "Can you catch?" And I go, "Yeah." And he goes, "Go sit down." And I sat down for like 4 hours until they got through all the testing. I did nothing except for a 40. I didn't do pro agility. I didn't do vert, bench, nothing. And so when we got to the one-on-ones, I just was killing people. I mean, because I could release and everything, and all I was doing was running fade routes, and they were loving me. So I signed a contract with the Arizona Rattlers, and I'm playing. And I called back home and say, "Hey, I'm staying. I'm playing arena football." My mom's like, "You better get a real job," And they're paying me $1,000 a week, and housing and food. And we worked out at the Phoenix Suns health clubs because Jerry Canangelo owned the team at the time. So I was like, okay. And that was a job. And I was a bench player, practice squad player. And I finally got in and, in an exhibition game. And I returned a kickoff for like 57 yards, and then that's the old arena where you had to catch it off the net and turn around and actually see something. And I did that. And Buddy Ryan happened to be in the crowd, who was head coach of the Phoenix Cardinals at the time. And I got invited to Cardinals camp. And so I was there for a couple of weeks, did the get your butt kicked for a couple of weeks. And then, they trim you, and went back to Arizona. Then being from the Midwest, I got traded to the Iowa Barnstormers. And I got cut, traded, then cut, because the head coach saw, he came from Canada, had his guys, and then they saw how fast I was and wanted me to come and try out. And I'm like, oh man, I'm not going to try out. So they go, well, what do you run? I said, I run 4.3. And they go, what are you going to run when you get here? I said, 4.3. And when I do, you better have the contract ready. And I was a little more cocky and brash and did that. I get there, and it's at Iowa State. And, I get there, and I'm like, Jose Jefferson. He's like, oh, Mr. 4.3. And I'm there. Now I'm pissed. Now I'm hot. So I go there. I don't even take off like my pants or my sweatshirt. I just take my hat off, tie up my shoes. Boom, 4:31. And I'm like, where's the contract? And, well, we want to see. Nope, where's the contract? I've already played. I already won a world championship with the Rattlers. Where's my contract? And they're like, well, and I said, I'm out. And so I left, and this guy comes up and says, hey, man, I saw you run, man. Why don't you throw the ball with us? Why don't you, work out with us a little bit? And I'm like, oh, okay. And I go, my name's Jose. He goes, Kurt Warner. Cool, man. Let's roll. And, he loved me he won't admit it, but I'm the fastest receiver he's ever thrown to. Hakeem, Torrey Holt, all those guys, man, I dust all those cats into my prime. But that's how we met. And we played together for 3 years, lived together for part of that time till I got married. And I went to the Chiefs intermittent during that time for camp, right around when Montana was there, and did the same thing I did before, and got there, got my butt kicked for a few weeks, and then they get rid of you when they got their team, and went back to Iowa. And during that time, I was coaching and getting a master's in education, but I ended up coaching for another 25 years. I've coached high school for 10 years, 3 as a head coach. I've coached college for 12 years on the Division III NAIA level. I was an associate head coach, recruiting coordinator, ops guy. I've coached in the Indoor Football League, the IFL, when it started in 1998. And I was a head coach there for 9 years. And I spent 6 as an assistant off and on. And then spent some time in the private sector, off and on as well too, because I have twin boys who are born with special needs. So I kind of got out of it for a little bit. But football is like the mob, you get out and it pulls you back in. So, it's tough to totally turn your back on it. And then before I got to the XFL, I was an associate athletic director for an NAIA school. And so I thought my path was going to be that way, went and got an MBA. So now I got the BSBA, the MAE, the MBA, and, got all these letters behind me. But in between that, about 10 years ago, I started the College Gridiron Showcase, which is in Fort Worth, Texas. And it's for guys like me who, if you're not going to the senior shrine or the PA, when I was coming out, like I said, I'm dating myself. It was the senior shrine and the blue-gray game. And they weren't looking for a 5'9", 175-pound receiver. Just nobody was at that time. And since then, we were the largest postseason all-star college game. We're about as big as the combine. We host 350 to 400 players a year. And last year we had, I think, 5 guys drafted, and we had 112 undrafted free agents. We get all 32 NFL teams, 150 scouts, and then that's how I got to the XFL. I don't know anybody in the XFL. It wasn't my background. I did a internship with the Packers and the Vikings about 20 years ago, but everybody was kind of scattered and they probably weren't where they were at that point in time in their lives. And so they came to my event last January and they saw how it was set up. It was Mark Ross, my current boss, Dave Dykman, and Doug Whaley, and they're like, "Man, you run all this?" I'm like, "Yeah, this is what I do." And they're like, "Well, why don't you bid for our showcases, like the showcases that they run now?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I can do that." So I did it, and I got second. They liked what I did, but they wanted like more technology, more techie stuff, and that's just not me. It just really isn't. I'm more about the information, and at the end of the day, some scout's always going to be standing there with his watch anyway. They want their information. So this was January. And so I go back to work. I'm an associate athletic director, and then I was an assistant track coach because they suckered me into that. But I ended up coaching 10 All-Americans in the jump. So, obviously it worked out for everybody. But I get a call in May. It was a week for our conference track meet. And Mark Ross calls and said, "Hey, would you be interested in an operations job with the XFL?" And I was like, I said, "I guess I never thought about it, but, let's talk." So I talked to him for an hour. I talked to Doug Whaley for an hour. The next day was Jim Manos, Janet Duke, Dave Dykman, all these people. And then Wednesday, I didn't hear anything. And Thursday, I didn't hear anything. So I was like, I sent the email, "Hey, thanks for your time. I appreciate it. I hope all's good." And I was going to this track meet in North Dakota. And from where I live, it was about 7 hours. So I drove. And about 9 o'clock in the morning, I get this call from Mark Ross that says, "Hey, how would you like to join the XFL?" And I'm like, "For real?" He's like, "Yeah." Said, "Job's yours if you want it." And I'm like, "Shoot, let's book it," and didn't realize it was my last conference meet that I was leaving an AD job. And, I called back to my wife and I was telling her what was happening. She was like, "Oh my God, let's talk about when you get home." And I was like, "Well, I'm not going to do it if not everybody's on board with this." And, like I said, I have twin boys with cerebral palsy. And my one son was like, "Man, you're going to work for Dwayne Johnson." And my younger son, they're twins, they're about 2 hours apart, but one's a little bit more mentally delayed with cerebral palsy. And he goes, "Dwayne Johnson." And my other son goes, "Jumanji." And he goes, "You're going to work for Mr. The Rock?"
Mr. The Rock.
And so, we started there. And then they're like, well, they told me who the coaches were. And he says, "Do you have any background with any of these coaches?" And I'm like, "Well, geez." I said, none of them really. I've seen them all on TV or whatever. And I met Wade Phillips about 20 years ago because I coached against his son. His son was played in the AF2, in the Arena League 2, and for San Diego Riptide as a quarterback. And I was the head coach of the Green Bay Blizzard at the time. And we just waxed the hell out of him. And I met Wade afterwards. And, he was, it's Wade Phillips, he's, the godfather of football, and, he's shaking hands and, because he was the guy. I ended up getting him tickets because it was our home game. And I did an internship with the Packers. I was going to. And so they had called and said, "Hey, Wade Phillips," and he was the D coordinator at San Diego, that he was coming, and could I get him tickets? And so I met him, but it wasn't anything meaningful. And they're like, "Well, do you have the very similar personality to Hines Ward?" And I was like, "Oh, okay," and didn't really think much about it. And they go, "Well, he'll call you like in a week or so." And the next day I get this phone call from an Atlanta number, which I don't know anybody in Atlanta. And I'm like, "This is Jose." And he's like, "What's up, brother? Welcome to the team." He's, he's Hines,
Right.
and he's a good dude, and we talked for about an hour and a half and chopped it up, and and he put me through the gambit. I mean, he's got to know who he's around. I mean, he can read a resume, which I had to send in after I got hired, which is something very weird to me. I've never done that before.
I've had that one other time with a job, like that they hired me, and then they're like, "Can we have a resume?" I'm like, "For what? Like I already signed. Like, why do you need my resume?"
It's
Whatever,
hilarious.
Here it is, but it's one of those things,
It was different for me, but we talked, like I said, for an hour and a half, and I told him, I said, I respect what you do, what you've done with the game and whatnot, but I said, if you're expecting me to be intimidated by you, I need 2 checks. One to do my job and one to be intimidated by you. And he just laughed, and I just told him, I said, I'm pretty simple. I said, I just need 3 things from you. I said, I need your support, just back me, and, I'll work hard for you. And secondly, any resources that you may have, any way you're going to make things easier for the team or myself, help me with that. And third and most important, stay out of my way and let me do my job. And he's like, okay. And I said, if you are at a practice or anywhere and you're like, man, I should be doing something, then I'm doing my job. If you're standing around and not doing anything, then I'm doing my job. And it's been great because, I mean, I'm older than Hines. I know I don't look older than Hines, but I'm older than him. And I've coached longer than he has. I've been a head coach longer than he has. And so our relationship is really unique. As my wife says, we're almost like brothers. I mean, because, I mean, it's not so much like, we banter. And I think I've been fired about 10 times last season. I got fired because I had an Android phone. I still do. I got fired because I made fun of the University of Georgia. I got fired because I made fun of his weight. I got fired because I was right about the weather. I mean, it's always, it's always in fun, but it's always public, Yeah. I got fired because we had this kid on our team named Ben Bisey, and if you followed us, he was a tight end for us, and he spells it Beise. And I went to a school with a kid named Daryl Lisey, Jeff Lisey. They're both brothers, and they spelled the same way except for with an L. So I assumed that's how he was saying. He goes, no, everybody always says bees or something like that, but it's Bisey. And so we're at this meeting, and we're at the big table. And all the coaches are at the big table, and I'm at what we call the outfield, me, the DPP, the Will Lewis, the film guy, Chris Miller. We're all like at the side table. And he's like, we got that Ben Bees kid. And I go, Bisey. And, everybody kind of looks around, you just corrected Coach Ward, and he's going on. He's like, the Bees kid. I go, Bisey. And then everybody's kind of like laughing, like, underneath their breath. And so he's going on, and we're talking a meeting. And he goes, that Ben kid. And I go, that Georgia education's really kicking in, isn't it? And he's like, fired. Just fired. And that's what everybody does, is what you do. They just laugh, And so it's always very public when I get fired. And, like I said, it's a great time. And I do my best to like I said, I protect him as best as I can. And what I mean by that is, if he's around anybody, he's Coach Ward. I don't call him by his first name. I don't refer to him any other than Coach Ward or Coach, and that's protecting him. That's doing the right thing. It's no different than what Dion does, with Coach Prime, and if you do that, because people know him for Dance with the Stars and the triathlon and even playing, but they don't know him as a coach. And it's funny. My wife's friend came down with her to a game, and she goes, man, I know you're a coach from somewhere. And I'm like, yeah, 2 Super Bowls. He was an MVP, and blah, 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 blah. And we're going on and played for the Steelers. She's like, no. And I go, Dancing with the Stars. Like, yeah, that's where I know him from. And he even will admit it that, when he was playing, he had like about 1 or 2 million followers. And then when he went to Dance with the Stars, it jumped to like 10 to 12, Yeah. And so, that's a
Power
huge
TV.
jump for him. Exactly. And But no, if you're around him long enough, I mean, he is truly passionate about football, truly passionate about getting things right, truly passionate about people. He's one of the coaches I've been around that is truly people centric, other centered. I mean, when you're at a meeting and he's crying at a meeting because of the passion that he's feeling about the game and the guys and what he wants. I mean, I've been around it a long time, and I can't recall a time where I've seen that in a meeting. Now I've seen it in, when you're at you're in the game and it's emotional. Maybe you lost, maybe you won, and you're doing that, hey, thank you for all your work, or, we just worked so hard. This was in a meeting, and he was so fired up and he was so pissed because he knew we were close. And this was, obviously you followed us, we lost one, we win one, and we were losing by field goal, 2 points here, 1 point there.
The worst
and
kind
we're
of
at a
losses.
meeting.
So we'll say I'd rather lose by 1,000,000 than lose by a field goal, 1-2. Yeah, no, like.
Oh yeah, and I remember the Monday meeting coming back, and it didn't start out that way. It started out as a, there's a week in advance. We got so and so coming up, blah 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 blah, and then he just went off script, boom. And then it was a Jim Rome, Arsenio Hall monologue, bang, done. And by the time he was done, there wasn't a dry eye in the room. And he was the main one. He was just so worked up, because he sees it. And the thing I have to remind him all the time is I said, you are who you are because of who you are. Not everybody is going to do the things that you did to be who you are. And I'm not saying that that's good or bad. It's just, it's indifferent. You just have to understand it. It's like, the thing I like about him is, and it was funny because he goes, nobody would ever had said this to me, but I did. I go, you will be successful as a coach when you no longer think you're the best receiver on the team. And he was like, huh. And I go, because if you do, we're never going to be very good because no one's going to be good enough. I said, it's called the Bart Starr syndrome. Bart Starr was a hell of a quarterback. How many championships he won for Green Bay, and then he became their coach, and they weren't good because he always thought he was the best quarterback on the team. Right. And you can't do that, and he's done a great job of not doing that. And he's fun to work around, but I tell you, he knows football, and it showed. We got hot at the end of the year. And between us, Orlando, and Arlington, our division, the lower half of our division, not Houston, what happened with Arlington could have easily happened with us or even Orlando. Look how, if you go back and you look how we all were in the beginning compared to how we all were at the end, nobody wanted to play us. Nobody. When we had people from Houston saying, oh, well, we'd rather play Arlington. And I'm thinking in my head, I don't know why. Perez is not a bad quarterback. All he needed was the system around him. That's what happens. And we got hot. To take DC, you followed us all season.
Yes, I did.
When's the last time we scored 29 points? We were rolling them. We were all over that ball game. And yeah, they may not have needed that ball game, but they certainly weren't trying to lose it. I tell you that. Yeah. And us missing that kick, man, that was a dagger. Holy cow. It's a dagger.
Yeah. At first, I'll say this because I think I was like most of America. I was against the XFL when it first started. It's like, all right, I got the NFL I'm following. I got this, I got that. I don't think we need more football. And then I don't know what it was. One day I was like, you know what? Nothing on. Let me throw on an XFL game. And it was one of your games. It was a San Antonio game that was on here in Ohio. And I'm sitting there. And at first I wasn't paying attention. I got so many things that I'm doing and I got going on too with myself. And I had my computer out and I was doing stuff. And then I felt myself just close my computer and just sit back. And my wife was like, what are you doing? I was like, I'm watching the XFL. She's like, I thought you were. I was like, I don't want to talk about it. I'm into it now. I'm like, we're not going to get into that. I don't know why, but I can't look away from this right now. And this is Yeah, these guys can ball. Like, a lot of these guys
Right.
are
Right.
I don't know why
See
they're in the
the
XFL and not the NFL, but I get that's what the
but the
XFL is wanting to do.
NFL but the NFL's done a poor job. If I mean, obviously they're the NFL. They own what 3 days out of the week, maybe even four.
Yeah.
You know, during the fall, but they have done a poor job of promoting anybody outside of the NFL. Case in point, NBA has the G League.
Yeah.
You know, and they promoted their players there. Major League Baseball has Class AAA, AA, Single A. They're promoting their players through the whole thing, getting them prepped to be stars. You know, I mean, I'm from Omaha, Nebraska, College World Series. Man, I've seen so many great players come out of there, and what do? They'll go to A-ball or AAA, and then they get promoted, you know, through not only through the marketing, you know, because like I remember, I'm old enough to remember when Bo Jackson was playing in Omaha in AAA because he was either a home run or a strikeout. So they were like, go get some at-bats. And it was packed in Omaha to watch him strike out or hit a home run. That was it. And but the NFL, where's their development league?
Yeah,
it's called the SEC.
I was just saying, I think that's the SEC pretty much because that's, you know, I'm a
Right.
huge kind of like you. You said you're a Cornhusker, you know, by default. I'm a Mountaineer by default. West Virginia. They disappoint me every year. You know what I mean? Like it's just like I tell we go through this every fall. Like I look at the schedule, I look at like everything. I look at the team. I follow everything. I get all the notifications on my phone, everything like that, because I'm in Ohio now and everything like that. I tell my wife, I was like, I think this is our year. But I'm gonna give it 2 games, and then I'm gonna figure out how they're gonna disappoint me this year. And then it's just like, all right, when we get into that Big 12 conference schedule, that's our downfall right there. We need to go to the ACC. I think I've been screaming that for years. That I don't know why West Virginia is in the Big 12. They need to be in the ACC and bring back the backyard brawl, the pit rivalry, the Syracuse rivalries, and all that. And like, I think, you know, and I'm thinking from, like you said, like a marketing standpoint, how big are those games? The backyard brawl last year got more views than the Super Bowl did the previous year.
Right.
Just because of that Pitt West Virginia rivalry.
Right. And that's the beauty of football, though, is that out of any sport, you always have a chance. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And there's always a game to win that could make your season. You know, Pitt, West Virginia, both of them can be over. But whoever wins that game, you know, one coach is gonna get praised, one's gonna get fired. Yeah. You know, you got bragging rights along the border, whatever the case may be. Any other sport, I mean, baseball is way too long. 162 games, man. I mean, you can go on a 10-game losing streak and nobody cares. You know, I mean, hockey is the same way. Basketball is the same way. There's just no game until you get to the playoffs that really, really matters. I mean, and then when you football, like Nebraska, you know, we're in the Big Ten now, and it's funny because 25 years ago, we'd have scoffed at being in the Big Ten. What are we going to go there for? You know, we win national championships, and now we barely get into a bowl. Yeah. I mean, and you know, but now, you know, we have traditional rivals now, which is great. I mean, we don't play Oklahoma anymore, and that used to be Thanksgiving. I don't care where you were and who you were in the country, Oklahoma, Nebraska on Thanksgiving. Yeah. Because the winner of that was playing for the national championship in the Orange Bowl every year. I mean, and those are games. I mean, I've been working in Texas between my event and the XFL for the last 10 years. And holy cow, these rivalries, Texas versus Texas Tech, Texas versus TCU, Texas versus Houston, Texas. I mean, holy cow. I mean, you got family members, you know, hating family members just because of where they went to school. That's deep. And that's one thing that's football that I just enjoy so much is that, they only play 10, 12 games, now 18 or whatever, but each game is significant. Yep. And that's why with us, I remember telling, you know, Hines before we even started, I said, it's going to take us 5 games to get to the playoffs. And I was pretty much right. I said, we win 5 games, we're going to be in there. I mean, and that's what Houston did. They won 5 games and they basically clinched a spot. And while all of us were catching up, but no, like I said, I truly enjoy what we're doing with the XFL. I'm bought in to the vision with Danny Garcia, with Dwayne Johnson, Jerry Cardinal. They're given a lot of opportunities, and I know with the recent firings and things of that nature, there's a huge difference between starting up a league and then maintaining a league. I mean, and it's all the way across the board. When you start a league, you need everybody. I mean, look at our player pool was like 3,000 people. I mean, it was a lot of people. And now we have teams. We have guys, some went to the NFL and they may or may not make it. Some will have, some will. So we don't need that many players. And it's the same with workers. Right now I'm busy because of my role, but there's no athletes to train. So some of those people aren't doing as much. There's really not much to do in terms of equipment. There's really not much to do with, there's just not enough. So they have made it a seasonal model, with full-time employees. And I get that, and I don't know if they could have made me seasonal, but with the way the head coaches lean on us, I don't see how. I mean,
right.
I really don't. I mean, if I was to say, hey, Coach Ward, I'll see you in January. He calls me about 5 or 10 times a day as it is now. So I feel very fortunate, very blessed to be considered a full-time employee. However, it's brought on what they've decreased other places. They've increased on us to pick up that slack, which is rightly so.
Right. So, you mentioned it briefly there about, taking 5 games to make the playoffs and that. Take me through a little bit of how the XFL season kind of works, like the number of games, playoffs, and then the championships, and how that kind of works. Because I kind of understand it because I started to follow it, but I don't think everybody else knows how that works. So take us through a little bit of that.
Well, what they did was we have 10 games, and then they split us in divisions. And in our division, you play everybody twice. And then there's, obviously best record, head-to-head. There's a point differential. That's why, St. Louis didn't make the playoffs because their point differential, their record was really good, but they didn't make it due to playoff differential plus division. Our division was not as strong as the other division. However, you got to take 2 from each division. And then after that, there's one playoff game, 4 teams, one playoff game, and then the championship. So, the most games played were 12 games, but on our side, like I said, Houston started out like gangbusters, and then cooled off. And then we're all playing catch up to get there. And at the end of the season, if we needed to beat Vegas, which we didn't even show up for that game, which was terrible. We needed to beat Arlington, which we did. We need to beat Orlando, which we did. And then we needed to beat DC, which we missed a field goal, and that's, like I said, if we'd have did that, we'd have sealed that second playoff spot, and that could have been us playing in that championship game. I truly think we'd have beat Houston. They were getting tired of playing us, just as they were getting tired of playing Arlington, and it showed. And if we'd have played DC again, we probably would have beat them again. I mean, I still think in my mind we beat them. We just missed a field goal. But that's why I'm not shocked at what Arlington did, because even if you looked at Orlando, they might have been 1-9, but they took St. Louis to the brink. They took us to the brink. They beat DC, something that only Arlington did, So that's what I like about it is the parity in this league with the teams is great. I mean, like you were saying with college football, you pretty much know who the cellar dwellers are, the games that you're going to win. This year with the XFL, they're trying to predict it. I mean, and when Orlando went in and played DC, and now the gambling thing is big now. Yeah, I guarantee a lot of people lost a lot of money.
I'm one of them. I thought I had it down pat. I was like, I was on FanDuel, and I was just like, XFL, let's give it a shot. I like betting on football, nothing major, I'm I'm a struggling comedian. You know what I mean? Like so I was looking at it, and my wife's like, "Don't do a parlay. I'm telling you right now, you shouldn't do a parlay." I was like, "I got this. It's San Antonio. I got it. Like I got this. I like it. Hines Ward. You can't go wrong with Hines Ward." Like,
my God.
That was my mindset going into it because I grew up watching Hines playing in Pittsburgh and loved, Steelers fan and loved Hines Ward. Met him briefly when I was in college because the Steelers always do a charity basketball game at Bethany College where players come. They get to play the students. It doesn't have to just be the basketball players. I played in the game. I met him, Charlie Batch, James Harrison.
Wow.
James Harrison is the biggest man I've ever met in my life.
We still hear stories from him about him from Hines.
Yeah, I'm not the biggest built guy. I'm a little heavier now than I was in college. I was a swimmer growing up, so I was always, thin. I played a little bit of football, but in college, I'm 6'5", and I was maybe 160 pounds at this point in time because I was in the middle of swim season, so I was in my lean swimming shape, and I was like, I'll play a little basketball. Coach allowed me to go and play in the game, and they were like, "All right, Mike, you got Harrison." I was like, "Are you freaking kidding me?"
Big man.
They're like, you're just guard him. I was like, whatever. All right, I'm a swimmer, just so you guys know. Like, this isn't going to go well. But halftime, they were signing autographs and stuff like that. It's a nice event, but I still remember. I doubt he remembers this, but I walked up to him. I put my shirt down. He was signing. I was like, "Hey, man, can you pick me up and rock me like a baby? You're like the biggest man I've ever seen in my entire life. Your arm is the size of my torso."
Yeah, and he's a big human being.
And it was the third quarter of the game. I remember this too as well because it's the most terrifying thing I've seen. I was kind of jogging back. I knew I was getting replaced and wasn't getting back on defense or offense that fast. And then he stole the ball, so I'm under the hoop already, and he's got a clear shot at me. And I hear the coach goes, "Take a charge," and I went, "Nope," and I just walked out of the way. I was like, "Windmill it, dude. I don't care. 360 dunk it. No way am I taking that charge from James Harrison."
That's called making a business decision.
Exactly. I was like, I got a meet in 2 days. I got to swim in. I'm not. Where's Mike? He's in a coma. He took a charge from James Harrison. That's what.
He's in traction right now, but he got the charge.
He got the foul. He took it. Hines was there at one event, and I met him briefly. Great guy. And one thing I remember, even watching him, and even my wife says it. She's like, "Oh, that smile. Does he still have the smile when he's on the sidelines?" And
he's very gracious with his time, and like I said, I was a head coach, and I had my little moment in the sun, and I coached for the Lincoln Lightning, Sioux City Bandits, Green Bay Blizzard, so you're the head coach, and you get a little attention, and the younger kids or people want your autograph and everything, but being around him was a totally different experience. We went to the Houston UT San Antonio game. The kickoff was a year ago, and it got to the point to where I asked the Dome for security around him. And not that anybody was threatening, but I could see it on him. He just draws a different dimension. And I will say this about him. We were 3-7 or whatever, but it never fails. Part of my job is to take selfies of people with him. And we were at Arlington, and they were screaming at him and blah, 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 blah. Take a picture with us. And there, Orlando, people with Steelers jerseys. They had Steelers jerseys and Guardian hats. And I tell you, by far, he is the most popular coach in the XFL. And it goes with him. But you would think that he would, and he told me a story about Jerome Bettis and versus Antonio Brown, and not to, kick that man when he's down, but, not very friendly when it comes to autographs. And, obviously he is who he is. But he was saying that Jerome Bettis, he was eating dinner, and these people came up to him, and he put his plate down or the fork down, and he got up and took the pictures and this, that, and the other. And they were very gracious. And Hines was like, man, he goes, man, that's amazing that you do that. He goes, yeah. He goes, because there's going to come a day they're not going to do that.
Yeah.
And he goes, and he goes, that stuck with Hines. And everywhere. I mean, it never fails. Somebody will shake his hands, and the first thing out of his mouth, not their mouth, do you want a picture? Because, I mean, and sure enough, they do. You know, and I'm here, hey, Jose, and I'm taking these pictures, and it's, you know, I respect that a lot, because I know that could be a grind. And, you know, but my sons, you know, and they're still getting used to him. And he's like, I'm afraid to ask Coach Ward for a picture. I'm like, why? I'm like, you know him, you have access, you know. And so they took a picture, and my son, they'll be seniors next year in high school. He walked around school with this picture on his phone, you know that. Oh my! And he doesn't play football or anything, and the football team, the coaches, and oh my God, he's taking selfies with the selfie, you know, with people. I'm like, it's the weirdest thing I've ever seen, and so. But no, I think he does a great job as an ambassador for not only the sport, but the league and our team. You know, is he competitive? Absolutely. Absolutely. And he wouldn't be who he is if he wasn't. And that's part of my job. I mean, I'm the director of team operations, but I also assisted with the running backs. I also assisted with special teams. And I was not only the get back coach, but I was his get back coach. And people laugh, but there's been plenty of times where my friends or my wife or they're like, why are you grabbing him? I said, because he's on the field. I got this official saying, get him back, you know, or whatever. And I remember when we first talked about this, I said, so he goes, I'm your get back coach too. I go, so do you want the shoulder tap, or do you want me the full on grab? And he goes, no, man, go ahead and grab me. I said, okay, because I'm telling you, that elbow comes back. We're going to get down right in the Alamo Dome, right there. And he started laughing too. I'm like, you're going to see a fight on the sideline amongst teammates and about nothing to do except for that elbow coming back. But no, we have a good time, and I'm like I said, I'm pretty blessed that he values my opinion. I mean, like, I'm also do situational roles. Like when we score and you see in the game, and I'm like next to him, 9 times out of 10, it's, are we going for 1, 2, or 3? Hey, we're only up by X amount of points. We probably need 2 here, or you know what? We only just need 1, or blah 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 blah. And a buddy of mine is like, man, you over there telling Hines Ward what to do? I go, no, because he gets so excited, he forgets. It's not like, you know, you score a touchdown, you don't kick PAT, people run on. That's where the XFL is different. We got to strategize. Hey, what are we doing here? 1, 2, or 3, left hash, middle hash, where are we going? And so while they're celebrating, I'm grabbing the official, and the official's looking. I'm like, okay, 2 points, left hash, you know, those things. But no, very much into it, very much wants to, you know, I don't know what his goals are. I mean, I'm not going to speak for him, but I'd imagine just like anything else, you know, you want to be at the highest level. But I do think he enjoys the XFL and knows that there's things that he still has left to do in this league. You know, I mean, it's not like, you know, I'm going to just be here and then, you know, when it's done, I'm going to go do something else. I mean, he wants to win in San Antonio. He wants to win the league, and whatever comes from it, you know, so. Right. We talk about it a lot, you know.
Right. It comes with the territory, and you know what? We are running down near the end of the episode here. I got 2 final things for you. First off,
Sure.
How do you know Ernest Wilson? You know, he kind of hooked us up together, and good old Ernest. I gotta know that question.
I met Ernest Wilson in 1999 in the IFL Indoor Football League, and he was coaching the Dayton Skyhawks. And I was with the Lincoln Lightning, and that's where we first met, and we've been friends ever since, you know. And, you know, kind of started off as, you know, mentor, mentee, and because I was younger. I mean, I was a head coach at 29 years old, you know, I mean, right. In a pro league per se. And when you're not that much older than the you know, players that you coach, it's a different dynamic. So it was nice to be able to lean on Ernest and his experience. And then we became competitors. And then I actually helped him with things, like he was working with South Carolina, and I remember coming there and running his workout. And there was like 400 guys there. And I'm like, yeah, we got it. It's no big deal. Man, that thing was smooth as butter. And he was like, man, you need to come work for me. I'm like, nah, I'm good. And not that I didn't like him or anything, is that I had my own team, wanted to do my own thing. But he's been a great friend since, like I said, 99. I dated myself, because I'm 52 and I think he's older than me, but always have been a good friend. And, when he was going with the MLB, even college, with my event, getting players. So, I mean, it all comes full circle. And I don't step on people if I'm climbing, and I ain't trying to beg people if I'm coming down. That's why I just treat everybody the same, because at the, eventually it's nice. It's just like anything else. It's nice when the phone rings, and this is me. If I can help somebody, I will. That's just my nature, and so I keep the best compliment I've ever gotten from a coach was that I'm the same person every day. And regardless of where I'm at. And that's what that's what I hold on to try to remember those things when people call me or need something, that maybe I'm the person they needed, for something, just as if I was their age, I would need somebody like me. Hence my relationship with Coach Ward. I needed a me on my staff, an older Black coach to kind of guide me through things. Not that I didn't have older white coaches, but the path is different. And that's where Ernest came in, but he wasn't around me all the time, which stunk. He wasn't on my staff. Right. But that's what I do for Hines now is, advise. I don't tell him what to do. I just give an honest opinion, and 9 times out of 10, that's what you need.
Yeah, and you know what, I kind of get that, a little bit of that, being a comedian and everything like that. People always come up to me and they're like, so what do you like when you're home? I was like, what do you mean? What am I like when I'm home? They're like, well, that's obviously an act on stage, right? I was like, oh no, I'm the same person at home that I am on stage. There's just no spotlight, and I'm not holding a microphone. I was like, my wife is right over there. You can go and ask her anything. She doesn't stop laughing at home because I will turn anything into a joke.
That's
no matter what it is. But everyone always asks me, well, you're a different person when you're home, right? Not in the slightest. This is me. This is me when I'm on stage. I just have a big spotlight on me and a microphone, and now people are in proximity to a speaker system so they can hear it a little bit better. But that's I'm the same.
No, maybe it's my age. Maybe it's my hormones. Maybe it's just me just needing to, exert who I am. But it saves so much time.
Yeah.
When you just not disrespectful, and I think that's why me and Hines get along so well, because, if I don't like something, I'm going to tell him. Mm-hmm. And he called me 23 times one day, 23 times. And it was like at midnight, and here I am picking up a cell phone at midnight. Obviously you get the stray eye from the wife,
Mm-hmm.
And also now it's just like, oh, it's Hines. And he goes, we're working on a schedule. And he's like, I don't need to be an ass. I just want to be detailed. And I said, trust me, Hines, I have no problem of letting you know if you're being an ass.
Yeah.
And he's just like, he goes, I don't know if I like that or
not. I have the same relationship with my comedy manager. It's kind of like that coach-player mentality. He's getting me shows, but he calls me something, and sometimes it's like, dude, that is the dumbest shit I've ever heard in my life. Like he wanted me to do these sets of shows, and I know we're getting a little off track here, but no,
that's okay.
He wanted me to do these sets of shows. He was like, all right, man, it's going to be a weekly showcase. It's up in Cleveland, what do you think about that? I was like, what days it's on? Because I still have a day job. So first off, and he's like, it's a Monday. I was like, who the hell goes to a comedy show on a Monday night at a bar?
Right.
And he was just like, well, they have these people, they're promoting it and all that. I was like, okay, what's it pay? That's always my question when I got to go a distance. What does it pay? And he was like, oh, well, it pays this. I was like, okay, that's enough for me to put gas in my truck to get there. And he was just like, uh-huh. I was like, so the answer is no on that one.
No,
I'm gonna tell you.
exactly.
Okay, I'll spell it out for you. No, that's a 2.5 hour drive for me. I get 15 miles to the gallon in my truck. Like, they better come with a little bit more cheddar, or help me out with some gas, and I'll do it. And he was like, "Yeah, that was the best I could do." I was like, "Well, then you better get back to the drawing boards, my man, because that's not gonna work." And he was just. But we
fired.
Yeah, I was like, "You're fired, man. Like, that's it. I'm firing you right now. Like, that's it." But we have that working relationship, kind of like what you said with you and Hines. But like I said, we're running down near the end of the episode. Jose, I give every guest this opportunity at the end of every show. If there's anything that you want to get out there, whether it's for the XFL, your camps, or even if it's just a good message, I'm going to give you about a minute, and the floor is yours.
No, I'm. Like I said, I feel very blessed. I have my alphabet job, CGS, XFL, and I'm a firm believer of always moving forward. I'll go in any direction as long as it's forward. I try to be the person that I needed when I was, these guys' age, and I just feel very fortunate to be in the position that I am, the people that I'm around. People talk about, money and, whatever the case may be, but I've been rich for a long time, so, I mean, I got, great family. I got great friends, and I'm about 10% of this world that does the things that they want to do in a career. And I just try to be a servant leader the best I can, and try to bring some good in the world, but keep going with the XFL. That's the plan. And my event, College Gridiron Showcase, will kick it off the week before the XFL camp. But nope, I'm available for anybody, anything. And I'm flattered and humbled, by your call to do this. So thank you. And whenever you want to do it again, I'm around. So thank you.
Hey, we appreciate you coming on. We love talking to you, learn a little bit more of the inner workings of the XFL and everything like that, and getting a little bit more on Hines Ward, who I've always been a big fan of. I've watched you guys, the San Antonio Brahmas. We'll get it right this time. The Brahmas. Loved it. I'm loving the XFL, and I'm glad it's back. I remember when it was under Vince McMahon and everything like that, but I love that the XFL is back, and like you said, that supplemental league, and getting to talk to somebody in that league was a lot of fun. Had a lot of fun talking to you. But that is going to do it for this week's episode of the Ride Home Rants podcast. I want to again thank Jose Jefferson for joining the show, but everyone, please be sure to peep all of the sponsors that you heard at the beginning of the show. Reaper Apparel, Tactical Brotherhood, my own personal merch store, the Stupid Should Hurt merch store. Also, we have a few new sponsors here. That is W Energy drinks for gamers, podcasters, streamers alike. It is made by gamers for gamers. I've tried this. It is replacing my morning coffee in the morning. I need a little bit more W Energy this morning because I was, as we saw at the beginning of the show. But use the promo code Mike Bono. That'll get you 10% off of your purchase. And this one is by far my favorite sponsor, and that is Shankit Golf. Golf apparel for the everyday golfer, not somebody who's going to go out there and shoot a 6 under par, but maybe a 6 over par. We're going to help you rock it on and off the course. Everything you need to kill it on the course. Use the promo code Mike Bono and get 10% off of that as well. Again, thank you, Jose Jefferson. That is going to do us for us. As always, if you enjoyed the show, be a friend, tell a friend. If you didn't, tell them anyways. They might like it just because you didn't. That's going to do it for me, and I will see y'all next week. The Ride Home Rants podcast is brought to you by W Energy. Energy drinks made for gamers, streamers, and podcasters alike. For gamers, streamers, and podcasters alike. Go to the link in the description where you can find the best energy drinks out there. Less caffeine than a cup of coffee. Also,
No jitters and no crash afterwards. Use the promo code Mike Bono and get yourself 10% off. Also, the Ride Home Rants podcast is brought to you by my favorite sponsor of the show, and that is Shankit Golf. Golf apparel made for the everyday golfer. We might not go out and shoot a 6 under par. We're probably going to shoot a 6 over par, but this is going to give us the gear that's going to help us rock it on and off of the course. Go to the link in the bio, use the promo code Mike Bono, and get yourself 10% off there as well.